Hey mama, are you a multi-passionate mom who is juggling all the things, nursing a baby, battling laundry, trying to keep it together and keep a spicy marriage, and feeling like you're feeling all of it? What's up? I'm Ashley Carroll. I'm here to hold your hand through this process because I believe when you're ready to take control of your life, beat the limiting excuses, step into your own power, you can not only survive, but you can thrive. But you're gonna have to show up for yourself. It's time for me to tough love your way through prioritization, taking self-care seriously, getting rid of excuses, reconnecting with your family, kids, and spouse, and quite honestly, learning to love the chaos because the glory is in the journey. It's in the mess. In this podcast, you will find balance for busy mamas, navigating mom guilt, time management strategies, and everything in between with no fluff and lots of fun. Let's go. Hey friends, what's up? Happy Friday. If it is Friday when you're listening to this. If not, I hope you're having an amazing week so far. I'm so glad, as always, that you're here, that you chose this podcast to listen to grace your earbuds when you can choose any other podcast to listen to. So I love that you're here. I'm so happy. Today, I want to talk to you guys about some cheesy thing that I've come up with because Texas weather is weather. And you guys know it's like freezing here right now, but like freezing for Texans, I might add, because if you're somewhere else in the world, especially like Canada or Minnesota, places that get actual real winters, you're just laughing at us right now. Like our grocery stores are bare because it like barely frosted the other day. And apparently we're supposed to get some more snow, which of course would happen the one year that I'm living in an RV instead of, I don't know, say the past 10 years when I lived in a actual house. We had 1 year of snow in all those years that we lived in a brick house. 1 year of snow. And then right now we've already had literally the day after we moved all of our stuff to this barn and RV setup we have. It snowed the day after they unloaded the truck of all our stuff. So we weren't even like prepared, not even set up, nothing. Snowed. And then already it's starting to snow like at least one more time. It's supposed to be like crazy. So anyways, let me get to the point about what I was trying to say. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about weathering the seasons of marriage. See, get it? Like weather. But it's true because right now we're gearing up for Valentine's Day, and I've been kind of like talking about it leading up to this point. You're tired of me. I know. You don't care about Valentine's Day. I've heard it, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't change the fact that your marriage can be in a better place than it is now. Or if you're feeling like kind of salty about Valentine's Day, I want you to like dig into those wounds and really have some self-reflection of like, why do I really feel this way? Because I guarantee it's not because of Hallmark. I guarantee it's not because of, you don't like the color pink or red. Like maybe you don't, but that's not the real reason. So I want you to dig in there. And maybe it's because marriage right now isn't so lovey-dovey. It's not so Hallmark. It's not so picture perfect. It's not so Instagrammable. I mean, and honestly, nobody's is, but that's what's shown to us, right? And so this time of year can be really, really hard when either A, you're in the trenches and you're working really hard on your marriage and you're not out of it yet, but everybody's posting their highlight reel, which is triggering, right? Like even though we know deep down that their marriage isn't probably perfect, seeing all those picture perfect, quote unquote, picture perfect pictures for Valentine's Day can be upsetting, right? It can be irritating. So let's acknowledge the fact that like as life comes in seasons and has its seasons, so does our marriage, man. Our marriage has its own like tropical storm going on at some times. It has its own forecast. And I have become aware of the fact that for me, I used to have this habit of like preparing for the worst, always thinking of the worst, preparing for the worst. And that was just ingrained in me by things that I could and couldn't avoid. And so now I have the opportunity to dig into that and then undo it and work through it and acknowledge it and change it. And that's fine. So one of the things that I've learned is that in the season of blessing, like if your marriage isn't feeling like it's fragile, if it doesn't feel like it's going through the trenches, if right now you feel like you're in a really sweet spot, and you feel like things are good, you're connected, you're even, your bedroom life is semi-decent, you feel good about where you are, right? Like everything just feels like it's right now. then I encourage you in the season of blessing to take it all in. Enjoy it. Be fully present. Be there for it. We're in that season right now, personally, of a season of blessing, but literally, it comes in waves, right? When you're in a season of blessing, I say be present because after a season of being in blessing, a season of challenges could be right around the corner. And you're not going to want to skip out on the opportunity to be fully present, to be fully experiencing, to be fully just diving into each other and all that your marriage has to offer, because that'll set you up for that season of challenges that is soon or yet to come. So as I was saying, I used to have this issue of kind of looking at the worst. And so even when I was in the season of blessing, I was waiting for the bottom to fall out. Or my old habits would come to surface and I would just bust down a perfect moment or an opportunity that my husband was pursuing me, or this, that, and the other. I was always putting up walls or fighting or flighting, right? And so if you're in that, I really want you to be intentional about being there for it. Get off your phone. Be intentional. Take advantage of date nights in the season because they're going to be really sweet when you're in a season of blessing. Keep on keeping on. You want to fuel the fire, right? It's you don't just start a fire and expect it to keep going on its own. No, you have to keep giving it logs. You have to keep tending to the fire to keep it going. Same thing with our marriages. And then when the fire is struggling, when it's dying out, when the flames are dimming and it's just barely hanging on to any semblance of heat, you have to feed it. You have to find and give it the things that it needs to fuel the fire, to get it lit again, and to get it thriving again. So the same thing here. I know I'm all here with the analogies today, but it is what it is. I love it. So get over it. There are seasons in marriage that are inevitable, right? Just like as the earth turns, it goes winter, spring, summer, fall, right? And we're going to age. We're going to have death in our family. People are going to get married. The inevitable happens. Babies come. Relatives, are invited into our family. Relatives are sadly lost in our family. But then there are things that we cannot control. They're unexpected, seasonal happenings, like infidelity unexpectedly in your marriage, or maybe it's job loss, or maybe it's illness, or maybe it's having to care for a family member that you weren't ready or prepared to care for, or maybe it's, fill in the blank, right? There are things that happen that are unexpected that cause our marriage to be tested. The work and intentionality that you put in now, in this current day, today, you can start right now investing, being purposeful, being intentional, and starting to put in the work will make your marriage more capable to weather out the toughest storms when they do come. And also, really being present, fully embracing the blessing or the season that you're in right now will give you the energy and the strength through the trials, right? Because you can look back and be oh yeah, there were these sweet moments, it reminds you and gives you the fuel to keep pushing forward, because it is seasonal. This is just momentary. This is not forever. And you can remind yourself and hold on to those things because those are true, right? You have that true proof that this is not forever. And you can reminisce about what was, because right now we're just in it. We're getting it's messy. We're fighting through this. We're digging ourselves through the trenches. We're it's like being stuck in the mud, just trying to get one foot in front of the other. But you have that in your mind that it once was sweet. We'll be there again. This is just a season. Right now, it may look like, because sleep deprivation, you have a new baby on your hands. You have postpartum depression going on. You have a job and all the things. And maybe now the weight of financially caring for your family is now on your shoulders. Or, like I said, fill in the blank, right? The world hands it to us, because I believe that what I'm learning right now, what I'm going through right now, is God never said that it would be easy. It's not marriage that's difficult, right? It's not marriage that is hard. It's people that are hard. Marriage essentially is a promise to God, and the exchanging of vows and the commitment and the fancy dress and the rings, but it's the people, right? We make it hard. We are hard. We're hard to manage. Even I can't handle myself sometimes, right? So the work and intentionality you put in now will make your marriage more capable to weather the toughest storms. You can only control how you guys respond. This is something that my husband has ingrained in my kids' brains, and I'm so thankful for it. And he's ingrained it in my brain, and it's something that I'm regurgitating constantly because I used to be a control freak, which ended up blowing up in my face because, as you know, and as you guys have learned and gone through life, we cannot control all the things. Like, we just can't. And then when we try to, man, does it blow up in our face, right? Because we can't control those things. We can only control how we can respond and how will we attack or be a united front to weather the storm as a team. Because if you're not a team and one of you is winning, then that means the other one of you is losing. And that means that you're not a unit. You're not together as one. And somebody feels attacked, left behind, forgotten, unseen, unheard, resentful. I am not perfect by any means. You guys should definitely know that by now because I call myself out on this podcast frequently. My marriage isn't perfect, but I do know that because I didn't grow up in a home where marriage was considered valuable, it wasn't prioritized, it wasn't healthy, relationships weren't healthy. I am actively, constantly, and intentionally, passionately, like fill in the blank, right? Like I'm just intensely in pursuit of growth in that area because I know nothing about it. I think that's the sweet thing about coming from the not knowing or the unprepared is that like I didn't rely on what I already knew because I didn't know a thing. So I had to go and find out how to do that. And then when we got married, we didn't know anything. I didn't know that I needed to go and pursue these things. And we royally screwed things up, and we realized, wow, mentors in our life really make a difference. And wow, godly people to pour in and show us what a healthy, godly marriage looks like is really beneficial. And so now it's just really important to me to leave breadcrumbs for mi amigos, you guys, and be like, hey, I've been there. Here's what I figured out. What have you figured out? Tell me. Like, this isn't never a I'm a peer teacher, you guys are my students. This is like, we're side by side. We should all be side by side in life, doing life together, being like, hey, this is what I found out. Try this. Hey, this worked for us. Maybe it'll work for you. Hey, like we should all be coming together and supporting each other and growing together and helping each other as a community because marriage ain't hard, y'all. People are hard. But it's not uncommon to find somebody like you or somebody like your husband that you can relate to and learn from each other. So today's breadcrumbs that I'm going to share with you guys are what I feel like is necessary to weather the storm with your spouse. And I think the number one thing is communication. And these next few things that I'm going to list are the highlights of basically marriage in general. I'm creating this marriage method course because I really feel passionately, like I said, about marriage and leaving breadcrumbs for my friends. And I feel like communication is a huge part in that because without communication, you're essentially, oh my gosh, what's this quote that I came up with the other day? Hold on. Okay, I had to look it up real quick. Here it is. When there is no communication, all we are left with are assumptions, resentment, and loud silence. Y'all, can you relate to that? I can't think of any better way to communicate what a lack of communication in your relationship feels like. It feels like we are left with assumptions, right? Because we're not talking. We're just assuming what each other thinks, feels, or is doing, which, oh my gosh, is horrible because if you're in my brain, if you have a brain like me, like I go from 0 to 100 in like 5 seconds flat. Like you didn't answer the phone and all of a sudden it's because you're probably pooping, but I'm already at level 50 of like, how do I plan your funeral? Like what happened to the murder? Where was your body buried? Like, I mean, I just go like my mind just goes there. So when I'm left with assumptions and no communication, it can cause conflict where there should be no conflict because you're just taking a poo, right? Like, and then it causes resentment because you're assuming they feel a certain way. They're not doing it because of this, that, and the other. So now you feel resentful towards them and there's this loud silence. Ugh, can you like just feel the tension? Like you've been there when it's just like you could scream, right? It's so intense. So I feel like communication has to be the number one thing to weather the storm. And when you're in a season of blessing, you got to really like foster that, like I said, and continue to say like, hey, what's going on? What is it you need from me right now? That's something that I'm also adding into the marriage method course is some key questions that you can ask your spouse, like a weekly check-in to stay on task. And like, y'all, there is no shame in your game if you need to pull it up on your phone and be like, oh, so hey, how am I doing this week? How are your like, is your love tank full? Like, asking these questions, because we just have to create a habit to do it. And there ain't no shame in your game. The only shame that will come from it is if you don't do anything and then your house is burning down, your marriage is in flames, and you're trying to run like a chicken with your head cut off to fix it, and all of a sudden, I mean, it's too far gone, right? Like, waiting till the last minute, your house is already 3/4 the way burnt down to a crisp. Hosing it off ain't gonna help anymore, right? Or at least you're gonna have a lot of work to do to rebuild. So being proactive is way better than being reactive. And honestly, it doesn't matter how you do that communication. Like, if you find that your husband has a hard time talking about things, expressing his feelings, getting it out, because maybe that wasn't something that was the norm in their family, then you can write it out. Like, who says you have to sit down and like have long drawn out conversations over candlelit like dinners, or that you need to, like, I don't know what communication looks like in your mind, but there is no wrong way. It's whatever feels comfortable for you guys to communicate. And as long as it's uninterrupted, you're being present and mindful to each other, you're being respectful to each other, and you're giving yourself a safe space to express your feelings and fully conversate and get out what you need to say. So if it means that you need to write a note on each other's stand, like, hey, leave your husband a question. Hey, is everything okay? Like, and then let them write back. Who cares if it feels silly? It's your marriage. It's not somebody else's. Nobody else can see in. I don't know who you think is paying attention to your little love note passing, but nobody cares, right? Like, you got to do what you got to do for your marriage. So if that means writing a note, doing a text message, I feel like that should be your last resort, because there's something about being present in person, holding hands, looking each other in the eye, being intentional with your time, human to human interaction. But if all else fails, like, send a text message. Life is busy. I get it. So, take a moment and be like, hey, I really want you to know that I think you misheard me when I said this, that, and the other. I wanted to let you know that this is what it really meant, and I love you. I hope you have an amazing day. Like, them getting that text message would be much better than you not saying anything and trying to wait for, quote unquote, the perfect time, and then it never being that time because you have kids and you have family and you have life and you have games and you have activities and you have homework and you have work and et cetera, right? So I think communication is key. And then connection. If you're in the thick of it and you feel like everything is attacking your marriage, you being intentional about connecting with your spouse will help you guys feel like you're the strongest unit and anything can come at you. If you feel like you're intimately connected and emotionally connected and mentally connected, like you've been able to communicate, you've been able to spend time with each other one-on-one because that fuels you, your love languages are met, right? Like, you feel seen, valued, heard, and you're serving one another, then like, you're connected. You don't feel distant. So when things attack you, you don't feel like there's a giant hole in the wall that is between you and your spouse. You feel like you guys are the thickest, the strongest, like, shield ever, right? Against all things, and it's you and him against all things. I think if you want to dig deeper into like, what does communication look like and what does connection look like you can go back and listen to any of these episodes on marriage, and that will give you nuggets, and like, you can take what you need and use what you want, and those alone will give you enough information to get you through any season, I believe. And then the last thing that I feel like is necessary to weather any storm is your faith. Like, are you looking to yourself to solve the problem, or are you looking to God? Like, who are you holding on to? And maybe it's a higher power, but if you're just relying on self, like, I don't know about you, but I don't make a very good God. Like, I fail often. I'm not perfect, obviously. I can't solve every problem. I don't have all the answers. But what I do know is that what I believe in is that God is always there, right? Like, he's always there. He's good, and he does not promise me life without challenges. And so when I have an issue, I can even go into my Bible app and search like whatever I'm feeling, like loneliness, anxiety, worry, stress. You can literally just search those words, and then it will pull up a scripture for you that tells you the truth of how he will weather that storm for you. And the interesting thing is, when I was thinking about this, I actually looked up seasons of marriages, and I ended up not really like digging into much, but I saw that Gary Chapman, who does the love languages, also wrote a book on the 4 seasons of marriages, and he legit like talks about each season. Like, I think after you get married or when you're a newlywed, that season is spring. And then, things are beautiful and things are blooming. Your marriage is blooming. Your relationship is blooming. And so that might be a really good resource to look into. I didn't look into that because I don't want to tell you what his thoughts were. I wanted to tell you what my thoughts were. But I bet because I've read his 5 Love Languages book, I feel like that is a reputable resource, a very trustful resource, a very probably useful and much needed resource. And so I imagine that his Seasons of Marriage is an amazing book to check out as well. So the last few things I wanted to mention in terms of weathering the storm in your marriage, and something that I learned because we as a couple were basically forced into this dynamic, and it also was a rude awakening of marriage is never 50-50. Like, you can never divide the responsibilities 50-50 completely, right? Like, if you were to truly write them out, they would not be 50-50. And then you also can't show up as each individual people at 50% and 50% and feel like it's going to equal 100, and so your marriage should be thriving. No. You have to show up 100 and 100, whatever that looks like. If you have 20% to give, you show up 100% of that 20%. Or if you only have 18% to give, you show up 100% of that 18%. You're all in. You cannot be all in and also thinking of a plan B at the same time. You can't be all in your marriage and experiencing what it feels like to be all in if you're in the back of your mind wondering, what should I do if we get divorced? What should I do if he leaves me? What should I do? And coming up with all these exit strategies. Y'all, you cannot fully experience your marriage if you're halfway out the door already. That's just how it is. I was in that space because like I said, I like to plan for the worst, and I was depriving myself of being fully present by always having an exit strategy. And I didn't even mean to, right? Like I wanted to be all in, but I was so always prepared and taught to prepare for the worst and expect the worst, and the bottom's going to fall out. Things are never the way that they seem, and so I was wired that way. And then I realized, whoa, I'm missing out on so much because I'm letting my fear control my marriage. Maybe that's a whole other episode. I don't even know. But know that the weight of carrying the relationship is a sliding scale between you guys. When I had hyperemesis, I was literally contributing 0% to my marriage, to my family, to my kids, 0% because I was sick. I was like dying. No joke, guys. You think I'm exaggerating. But if you've had a friend with hyperemesis, you know that it's like 24-hour food poisoning. And I was 90-something pounds. I looked like I was literally dying, and I was supposed to have life growing inside of me. I couldn't move. I couldn't watch TV without feeling sick. I couldn't read without feeling sick. I couldn't smell anybody without feeling sick. Like, I could smell you from a mile away. It was awful. And I could only give 0%. My husband was doing 100%. And you know what? Like, I know that it was hard on him, but we've talked about this, and that is something that we've learned that is necessary in marriage, that we're not always going to be able to show up 50-50. We have to expect for sickness and in health, that sometimes I may be called to show up 100 when he's only got 10, or 90 when he's only got 10, or for him 100%. He was doing work, he was doing dinners, he was doing food, he was doing homework, he was doing lunches, he was doing pickup, he was going drop off, he was working, he was doing after school activities. Our daughter was in a play, so he was doing rehearsals at that, on top of everything else, taking out the dogs, taking care of the dogs, taking care of this, taking care of that, while I was laying in bed. Like, literally, that's all I could do was lay in bed, vomit, go to the bathroom, lay in bed. So I want to say a word of encouragement, because as a couple who's been in winter 3 times, right? Like, you could call my season of hyperemesis our winter, because it's definitely very hard, very trying. I did it 3 times, each time adding a kid to the mix that he was responsible for, that we needed help with to take care of, one less person that I could help out with, right? Is think about how y'all got there. Like, what caused you to get in this place of winter, the season of winter, the season of isolation, resentment, coldness? What caused you to get there? Because there's 2 of you, right? So it can't all be one. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a little. Maybe it's. Who cares? The percentages and the labeling doesn't matter. The thing that matters is, how are you going to get out of it? How did you get there in the first place? And then you can acknowledge that and be like, oh, okay, I see where things went wrong. Now we need to backtrack, come together as a unit and fix this. Surely if you were in spring once, you can get back, right? Be intentional. Date. Conversate. Get to know each other. We're constantly changing as people. We don't stay the same. Get to know each other. Is that a word? Get to know each other again, right? Like, continuously grow with each other. Ask each other about things that you're doing in your life and what things you want to do and things that are changing and how do you feel. And if you can't speak about it, write about it. If you can't write about it, text about it. But it needs to happen. Take action. Research, right? Like, if you're having trouble, if you feel like you have a low libido, if you feel like your husband has a pornography addiction, if you feel like things are getting in the way, you're having mother-in-law issues, you're having this issues. Y'all, the internet is your best friend. There's a coach out there that can teach you something. There's a therapist out there that can teach you something. There's people who blog about their life that have been through something that can teach you something, right? Like, we're all leaving breadcrumbs for each other because we know that life is hard and we know that it's not easy and we know that we can't do it alone. So if you go out and you're proactive, you take action, you are going to be okay because you're learning. And you may not take all of their information, right? But you can take nuggets, what you need, and apply it to your life and try things. And if it doesn't work, okay, it's not going to ruin anything that it already isn't messed up. You're just trying. And then you try something else. Seek out professional help. Seek out friends. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is to seek out friends who have marriages that I want. Because if you go to friends who have marriages that aren't healthy, they're not thriving, they're not in a good place, they're toxic, then guess what? They're giving you advice for what they know how to do. So if you want that, then that's what you're going to get. But if you go to somebody who is doing marriage the way you want to, and you're like, hey, what do you guys do when you fight? What do you guys do when you feel like you're not communicating well? What do you guys do? Like, they'll be happy to share that with you. You don't go to your favorite couple who built a treehouse that looks like your 5-year-old could have built, that's barely solid, right? Like, it's shaky. You're like, I don't know about that. And ask them to build you a house, right? Like, you just don't. Because obviously what you're going to get is something made out of safety pins and a tarp. Okay? So you don't go to couples with marital issues who have a marriage that isn't in a healthy place. And you got to look too, because on the outside we can make it look real nice. We can wrap it up real pretty for our friends. You just got to pay attention to what they have going on. You got to observe. And you got to be careful about who you get advice from. And then my last advice that I want you guys to take out of all this is to be all in. Be all in on your marriage 100%. Be there for it, right? You gave those vows, and it's so hard to remember those in the thick of it. It's so hard to remember those when you have spit up covered all over you, and he's late for coming home from work again, and you've got dinner, and you got dishes, and you have homework, and you have Zooms, and you have all these things, right? But be all in. Be 100% of that 20%. And the best thing I also learned was to verbalize what you have to give. So when you walk in the door and it's been a hard day, you could say, hey, I've only got 18% me to give to you today. It was rough. I'll tell you about it later, or this, that, and the other. Can you show up for the other 92? So whatever that looks like for you, be all in. All right, you guys. I hope you are, if you are in this season of winter, if you're weathering the storm, I know you guys are in the trenches. I pray for you that you will see the light soon, the end of the tunnel, and Lord, that you just empower these couples to have a strong front, united front. You guys, I want the best for your marriages. I want you to experience life at its fullest. We only have this one shot, and so that's why I'm so passionate about like going all in and experiencing it and giving it your all, because if wherever you go, there you are. I promise if it's not this marriage, it'll be the next marriage. It's just, who do you want to deal with these issues with, right? And so I would hope that right now when you're listening, you're like, I want to fight with this guy that I'm married with for the rest of my life. This guy more than anybody else. And it's worth it. He's worth it. And we'll get through this. And you will, you guys. You'll get through this storm. I believe in you. So if you found this episode helpful, I think it was kind of me just kind of riffing and brain dumping on you. But in any way, I hope that you found some nugget somewhere in there and you can manage it to do something with it. Hey, and just a heads up, my marriage method course is going to be going live for pre-order on my website, The Ash Carroll, sometime next week. I will let you guys know for sure when that is, but be on the lookout for it because it is going to help revive your marriage from meh to thriving. It's going to put a little pep in your marriage's step. We're going to be talking about acknowledging things moving forward, teamwork, communication, connection, And then we're going to do some self-work. Like, it's amazing. If you are in that season of winter right now, or maybe you just feel like your marriage isn't what it used to be, this is definitely for you. I'm really excited. I put my blood, sweat, and sleep-deprived tears into this, you guys. Like, if you follow me on Instagram, you know I've been working on this every day. Oh, my gosh. And so it's beautiful. I love it, and I can't wait to see what it does to your guys' marriages. I'm excited. So that'll be available for pre-order starting next week if you want to jump in on that. I have so much to offer with that, so many things, so I can't wait to tell you more about it. As always, I hope you share this episode with a friend, a family member, whoever you feel like could benefit from this message or the podcast in general, and I hope you have an amazing day.